What's up YouTube? This is Justin Symbol of the God Bombs. I am here to do my second review of my series of Marilyn Manson album reviews. Now, today we're going to talk about Smells Like Children, which is a remix slash covers slash random sounds and weird Halloween spooky sound effects album that came out between Portrait of an American Family, the debut album, and Antichrist Superstar, which was the breakthrough. The first time I ever listened to it, I was on mushrooms and we were tripping balls, and I literally was sitting at a desk and I hallucinated and I saw a giant crow head come between my legs and the beak was gonna bite my off. So that is my most clear memory of Smells Like Children. Smells Like Children is an odd artifact of a time when Marilyn Manson really went in such a dark direction on a major record label and sold a platinum album featuring some of the most fucked up psychotic sounds that any kid at that time could have probably heard on a record. Also, I would like to say the cover art of this album is probably the most iconic image of Manson that exists, and I love the logo that he used at that time period. It's definitely iconic to see him in black and green and sort of looking like the Wicked Witch from Wizard of Oz. He was very much the Wicked Witch of the 90s. If you were alive during that time, he was absolutely the boogeyman that parents would blame for all society's problems. So there's something very classic and very nostalgic about Smells Like Children. Some people don't even consider it a proper album. I do, however. I think it's a classic part of the Marilyn Manson discography. It's definitely the moment where they started to evolve from the sort of silly, campy sound of the Spooky Kids into something darker, more disturbing, and more genuinely fucked up. It's the most genuinely disturbing album in his discography. It is definitely a druggy kind of album. It's the kind of album that you want to listen to if you're tripping out. It's really weird. Half the songs aren't even songs, they're just like weird sound experiments and Halloween type sounds and weird recordings that are like completely fucked up. Overall, this album has one of Marilyn Manson's biggest hits, which is his cover of Sweet Dreams. That's definitely the highlight, the obvious fan favorite of this album. Smells Like Children is also really notable because it's the first album that features Twiggy Ramirez. It's the first album that features the new drummer at the time, Gingerfish. It's kind of the beginning of that classic lineup that would go on to create Antichrist Superstar. And also, it's the first album that was created from scratch with Trent Reznor as the producer. With Portrait of an American Family, they brought Trent Reznor the recordings because they weren't happy with them, and he kind of redid them in his style. In my opinion, he sort of took the magic out of it in a way because he made it more like on the grid. Whereas with Smells Like Children, you really get to hear the magic of that classic collaboration between Marilyn Manson, the band, and Trent Reznor as a producer. So I think this is where they really sort of formed that bond and that studio magic that would go on to be really encapsulated fully with Antichrist Superstar. Track 2, Diary of a Dope Fiend, is a really cool Manson song. It has that classic Daisy Berkowitz guitar sound and features some of Marilyn Manson's most haunting vocal performance. I love the songs on this album that are more stripped down, where you really get to hear how incredible Manson's vocals were at that time. He could really do some amazing vocal techniques without using any effects at all. He just made his voice sound really eerie and haunting on songs like Diary of a Dope Fiend and of course Sweet Dreams, as well as the I Put a Spell on You cover. It just gives you chills when you listen to it. You feel like you're in the room with the band. And that's one of the things I love about Smells Like Children, is there's sort of this intimate, DIY, stripped down vibe at times where you really feel like you're there sitting in the room. To me, it's even more eerie sounding than some of the songs on Antichrist Superstar. When I worked with Daisy Berkowitz on my song Purgatory, he actually played the same guitar that he told me he used for the cover of I Put a Spell on You by Screamin' Jay Hawkins. And I thought that was really cool. I love that eerie tone of that guitar. A lot of people often compare Marilyn Manson to Alice Cooper. However, I think it's cool that Manson actually paid homage to the original forefather of shock rock, which is not Alice Cooper. Because before Alice Cooper, you had Screamin' Jay Hawkins. And he was a black rock and roll artist who used to paint himself up like a voodoo preacher and scare the hell out of white kids in the audience. And I think it's cool that Manson pays homage to the source of shock rock with his cover of I Put a Spell on You. The song Scabs, Guns, and Peanut Butter is a really cool instrumental. It features Twiggy playing on a banjo, and then it kind of goes in reverse.
I want to know why it is that all of you seem to have satanic signs all over you, and what is it that does this music cause you to do what you do?
Is that directed at us or the parents?
That's funny. Twiggy.
It's really interesting and psychedelic, and hearing that song really gives me sort of a nostalgic vibe. In my opinion, Manson's never been a band where I really paid much attention to the remixes, but the remixes on Smells Like Children are probably the most high quality of any of the remixes he would go on to do later in his career. Songs like Kitty Grinder, Dance of the Dope Hats, and Everlasting Sucker showcase Marilyn Manson at their most industrial sounding, with Trent Reznor helping to remix and create that classic Nothing Records sound. Smells Like Children contains 3 of Manson's best covers: Sweet Dreams, I Put a Spell on You, and Rock and Roll. These songs were phenomenal covers and definitely were part of what broke Marilyn Manson through to the mainstream, because Manson's always been known for doing awesome covers, and it all starts with Smells Like Children. There's also a really interesting recording on here, which is an acoustic version of Cake and Sodomy, and it's called White Trash, sung by Tony Wiggins. If you ever read Manson's book, Long Hard Road Out of Hell, he gives a lot of details about the recording of this album and just this time period in general. And basically, Tony Wiggins was the bus driver on their tour with Danzig, who they befriended and who was someone that supplied them with a lot of drugs. And so it's interesting that this is actually the only time in Marilyn Manson's entire discography where he has a song on one of his albums that's not him singing. So I find that really interesting. I find that this version of Cake and Sodomy is actually really kind of a cool throwback, and it just has a special charm to it. This album is definitely a nostalgic album for the true fans. At the time it came out, it was an experience to listen to this album. People had more of an attention span back then. You put this album on, you did a bunch of drugs, you partied with your friends, you feel like you're in some kind of weird, psychotic, haunted house and Marilyn Manson singing to you. That's where this album is at its strongest. To me, at its weakest is when you try to listen to it in a modern day context and half the songs are just weird, bizarre sound recordings that no one nowadays probably has the attention span to listen to, and it's just kind of a bizarre collection of songs that doesn't really hold your interest as a whole. Even Manson, in his autobiography, Long Hard Road Out of Hell, he said that he compared this album to putting together an elaborate outfit for like a party, and then as you're going on your way out the door, it gets stuck on a nail and it all comes unraveled. So you definitely hear the band at their most drugged out, their most chaotic, their most dysfunctional. But that's kind of the charm of early Marilyn Manson, is it's dark in a way that was really honest and really naked, and the recordings really reflect that genuine darkness that the early band portrayed with their sound. To me, Smells Like Children is a must listen for hardcore fans, and is definitely a very important part of the evolution from Spooky Kids into the Marilyn Manson that would go on to create the classic Antichrist Superstar. So I love Smells Like Children for what it is. However, I think there's too many songs on there that are just weird recordings that don't really hold up to the test of time, and nowadays doesn't really have the same listening value that it had when it came out. So I'm gonna have to say, overall, I would give this album a 6.5. Obviously, Sweet Dreams is one of Manson's best songs ever, but the covers and the remixes are kind of buried amidst all these other recordings that don't really hold up nowadays. I definitely recommend it for those that are really interested in a deep dive in the Marilyn Manson universe. I would caution you that Smells Like Children contains themes that are incredibly provocative and shocking and inappropriate by today's standards. And I think that that's definitely something that is interesting to look at in the Marilyn Manson world, is like how this person was able to do something so taboo at that time, and that nowadays that doesn't really make sense in today's political climate. So 6.5 for Smells Like Children. Let us know what you think of Smells Like Children. Subscribe to our channel, click the bell icon for notifications, and check out our latest music video, Tie Me Up by the God Bombs.